The year was 1997. Out in the Western world, the hit music was the Backstreet Boys, Titanic had just released as the highest grossing film of all time, and yet, the mood was boredom. Luckily, being shipped across from Japan was the new hit fad. Oh, hey man, how's it going? Hey cool dude, I was just listening to some great music on my portable CD player. Wow, those things will never go out of style. So what is up, my bro? You have this keychain that poops, and you need to clean it up. On! Well, of course, this is all speculation on my part. To be fair, I was quite busy not being alive at that point in time. As I'm sure everybody watching knows, a Tamagotchi is a virtual pet where the owner must care for a virtual creature. Today I'll be talking about the original Tamagotchi from 1996 in Japan and 1997 in the rest of the world, along with covering the second generation of this device released in 1997 worldwide, since there are a few differences. These originals have also had many replicas reproduced, so they're not very hard to come by. Unlike the previously spoken about, V4, I haven't played this device until recently, and I don't have many stories about it, so I feel like I should have somebody who grew up around the device give it a proper introduction. Luckily, I think I know just the person.
Hi, I'm Gotchi Boy, and since Alexander isn't qualified to talk about this device in its peak popularity, I'm here to help you out. I first initially found out about Tamagotchi when I was in the 1990s. I was, I think, either in 4th or 5th grade, and I initially got introduced to them with a fellow student back in school. They had one in their pocket, and it went off in class, and no one could know exactly what it was. But at the end of the day, I talked with them, and they showed me what it was. It was basically an egg-shaped little toy, and you could take care of it, and I was just enthralled by the fact that you can have this pet that you technically didn't have to let out to use the restroom or anything like that. And that's really started the craze for me. I do not think that there was not one single child that had some type of virtual pet at the time in which these started coming out. There was like kids everywhere that had them either on their book bag, on their belt loops, wherever a key ring be available to attach to. I think every kid had one. And there were kids that had like chains of these hanging from themselves and then latched onto their belts or their belt loops and everything. So I think honestly, yeah, the Tamagotchis were the hit basically at that time. And because everyone had a virtual pet, it was, just a matter of time before in schools, teachers were getting upset at the fact that these were starting to invade their classrooms. I think I imagined that at that time that it wouldn't be a big issue, but it was. If you had any type of virtual pet go off in your classroom, the teacher would immediately look around the whole entire classroom and ask who has their Tamagotchi, because they couldn't say it correctly, or some type of toy that was going off. And some kids would say, no, that was my watch, that wasn't my virtual pet. And then at the end of the day, teachers had their whole entire drawers full of these virtual pets going off, and kids being upset at the fact that they took care of them for so long, and then that there's a potential for them to, pass away in the time that they were waiting to get it back. And it happened everywhere, school-wise, I think, honestly. I know specifically my school did. I think there was just like so many kids that were getting these taken away from them. I had at least roughly about 20 of these virtual pets, either Tamagotchi, Nano Baby, Gigapets, but Tamagotchi specifically that I had on a chain. And if you did have them go off in class, you would get reprimanded and then taken away from you. Banning did happen, especially in my school, when Tamagotchis first came out. And I think my best memory when it came to Tamagotchis, especially at that time, was the first one I got, which was a P2 clear case Tamagotchi. I loved that one. I love to this day the clear cases of all the Tamagotchis versions that came out. But that one specifically, that was my first one that I could really, really vividly remember getting. I was just so excited when we were going to Toys R Us. When Toys R Us was a thing, I was able to get that box at that kiosk that was right there. We had all of them at the table. And I remember just going up to that kiosk, getting mine, and just holding it and just looking at it and saying like, oh my God, this is going to be mine. And I think those memories really stick with me to this day and everything. Yeah, I'm a 33-year-old person, but at the end of the day, those things I take with me and I remember wholeheartedly, and how excited I was when I first got them. That's one of the biggest memories that I keep with me today. I really, really remember that day and that moment. It was really exciting for me. I think that covers things well. Back to you.
Thank you for filling us in, Aaron. I always think it's nice knowing the history of the device before you look at it. I'm sure for a lot of people that was a nostalgic look down memory lane. But for people like myself who weren't there to witness it at the time, I'm sure that fills you in on how Tamagotchis were the hit fad at the time. The P1 and 2 were the first Tamagotchis to be released, so they're quite a lot simpler than what was to come. But this isn't to say that they were easy to care for. They still required a lot of attention. So, if you've been digging through your old toys, wanting to feel some nostalgia, or simply want to experience one of the biggest fads from the 90s and the first Tamagotchis to be released, here is your one-stop shop for all the care you need to know. Chapter 1. Device and Setup. Let's start off with a simple look at the device. Here are the main features. The screen, on which are 8 icons, and the 3 buttons. We'll come to each of these in good time. If we turn the device around, there's a button to reset the Tamagotchi inset in the device. You'll need to get something thin like a paperclip to push it. This is so it never gets pressed by accident. If we unscrew it, you'll see 2 holes that we need to put batteries in. The original release takes 2 LR44 batteries, but since the P1 and P2 have been re-released many times, the replica takes CR2032 batteries. It's a good idea to double check which kind of batteries they need before you buy. So, we slam those batteries in there, it should give an energetic beep, and an egg should appear. Now you can press any button to set the time. Pressing the left button will move the hours forward, the center button will move the minutes forward, and to confirm you press the rightmost button. And now we wait for our future best friend to hatch. This normally takes about 5 minutes. It's good to note that you can press the center button now to check the clock. Ow. I have no idea how we care for a baby. Well, seems a good time to move on to Chapter 2, The Basics of Care. Let's get familiar with these 8 icons. We're going to look through them in a funky order because the original design placed the weighing scale as the 6th icon, whereas in all following devices, it was placed as the 1st. This is because it contains the most important information about your Tamagotchi, and with the icon you'll check the most to see if your pet needs fed or needs played with. So, we need to move to select the weighing scale. We do this by pushing the left button. This button lets us cycle between icons, and then pressing the center button confirms our selection. All menus work like this, using the left button to select, the center to confirm, and the right to cancel. The first page of the weighing scale displays age, 1 year being equivalent to 1 day, and weight. It will gain weight every time it eats, and lose weight every time it plays a game. The second page shows the Tamagotchi's discipline. The amount of discipline the Tamagotchi receives directly affects what they grow up into, and we'll cover this in more detail soon. The third page shows our Tamagotchi's hunger. The more hearts, the fuller the Tamagotchi. These need to be kept full. The fourth shows the Tamagotchi's happiness in a similar fashion. The more hearts, the happier they are. These also need to be kept full. There is also a hidden stat called care mistakes. It is a measure of how many times the user has failed to respond to the Tamagotchi's needs in time, which factors into what character it will evolve into, or how close to death it is. It's not possible to measure the total number of care mistakes at any given time, but its effects will be clear as the Tamagotchi evolves. Now, let's talk about the hunger and the happiness meters, the fundamentals of Tamagotchi life. If these meters empty fully, the Tamagotchi will cry out for food and a care mistake will be given, so make sure to check the hunger and happiness often and keep them full. Well, how do we keep them full? Let's look at the first icon. This opens the food menu. The first option feeds the Tamagotchi a meal, which fills a hunger heart, and increases the Tamagotchi's weight by 1. The second option feeds the Tamagotchi a snack, which will fill up a happiness heart and increase the Tamagotchi's weight by 2. Eating an excessive amount of snacks in a short period will cause illness, and Tamagotchi with a higher weight don't live as long as Tamagotchi with a lower weight. The The second icon is the light switch, which lets you turn the light on and off. When a Tamagotchi goes to sleep, it'll cry out and its attention icon will light up. And then it is your responsibility to quickly turn the lights off for the night, otherwise it will result in a care mistake. The third icon is the game icon, and oh baby, it's a good one. Winning the game will reward your Tamagotchi by increasing their happiness by 1, and simply playing it will reduce their weight by 1. What's the game, you ask? Well, on the P1 you have the ability to play the thrilling, the incredible,
left or right?
Yes, indeed. You must guess the direction, and if you guess correctly, you get 1 point. If you don't, you get none. Enjoy the uncontained thrills of random guesswork as you play a best of 5. Get at least 3 correct, and win 1 happiness. Guess all 3 correct, and you get a grand total of 2 happiness. On the P2 devices, the game is improved so it's not complete guesswork, and we'll cover that when we get to it. Icon number 4 is the medicine icon, which can be used to cure a sick Tamagotchi. When the Tamagotchi becomes ill, a skull will appear over their head. Things that can cause your Tamagotchi to get sick are growing old, eating too many snacks, and having too much poop left on the screen at once. Illness can lead to death, and a Tamagotchi won't call out when it becomes ill, so keep an eye on it and keep measures to avoid illness. Icon number 5 is the toilet icon. When your Tamagotchi poops, make sure to use this to clean it, as not tending to it will lead to illness, and in excessive cases, where multiple poops are left on the screen, the chance of illness drastically increases. Since we've already discussed the scale icon, we can move on to the 7th and final selectable icon, the discipline icon. It is used to punish your Tamagotchi for misbehavior. Occasionally, your Tamagotchi will call out for attention, and its attention icon will light up when it's still in perfectly good health, and they'll still have plenty of hearts in their hunger and happiness meter. This is when you must use the discipline icon to punish them. Each time you successfully respond to your Tamagotchi misbehaving, it will add 25% to the discipline meter, which affects the Tamagotchi's evolution. Using the icon when the Tamagotchi isn't misbehaving will cause it to lose a happiness heart. The final icon is the attention icon, which I've already mentioned several times. It's used to indicate when your Tamagotchi needs attention. Whether they are hungry, unhappy, or want their lights turned off, check what's wrong and act accordingly. And surprisingly, that's everything you need to know about care. Now we've spoken about that, we can move on to evolution and growth. Chapter 3. Evolution. Since the P1 and P2 only contain 11 characters, I can talk about each character individually. So, first off, your egg will always hatch into a baby-chi, the baby stage. At the baby stage, your Tamagotchi is most temperamental and demanding. What do you mean you're hungry? I've just fed you 10 times. You know, if we worked together, we'd get a lot more come on! At this point, I'm fairly certain you've pooped more than your entire body weight. Yeah! The baby stage is actually quite regimented. Here's a schedule of what your baby will follow through. Your baby is always born 5 minutes after the clock is set, and will spend 65 minutes as a baby, spending 1 hour awake and 5 minutes asleep. They will lose 1 hungry heart every 3 minutes and 1 happiness heart every 4 minutes. This is the fastest rate your Tamagotchi will ever lose these. They are guaranteed to poop 15 minutes after they are born, get sick after 33 minutes, and fall asleep at 40 minutes. After their nap, they'll wake up and poop a second time at 45 minutes. During the baby stage, you can't gain any weight and will remain at 5 grams. After the tiresome 65 minutes of caring for a baby, it will evolve into the less demanding toddler stage. The toddler stage is always Maruchi. Maruchi has a base weight of 10, so it can't go below 10 grams. It wakes up at 9 AM, sleeps at 8 PM. After 48 hours, it will evolve into the teen stage. The teen stage is the first time your Tamagotchi has a split path in evolution. If good care is given to Maruchi, it will evolve into Tamachi, and if poor care is given, it will evolve into Kuchi Tamachi. Your discipline level does not affect this evolution, but the discipline given as a toddler will carry over. So, to acquire certain characters, you need to discipline your Tamagotchi properly whilst it is a toddler. Beep 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 beep. Hello, it's me, Mr. Correction here. It turns out that each of the teen evolution stages actually has 2 sort of modes to them. One where they evolve with 75% or above discipline, and one where they don't. And if they evolve with 75% discipline, then they have a better chance of evolving into one of the better care characters than if they don't. Even some characters like Mamechi require you have a Tamagotchi with 75% discipline. You need a type 1 to get Mamechi. Other than the Mamechi case, I don't think there's any other specifications I need to make. All the other information in the video is correct, but that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, side note over, you can return to your regular scheduled, this. The base weight of a teen is 20 grams. Tamagotchi, being the healthy one of the two, sleeps from 9 PM to 8 AM. Gotchi Tamagotchi is less of an early riser and wakes up at 9 AM instead. After 72 hours of the teenager stage, it will evolve into an adult. Some of the higher evolutions are dependent on your Tamagotchi's discipline, and there are 6 total. We'll start by looking at Gotchi Tamagotchi's evolutions, since they're limited to only 3. If you give horrible care to Gotchi Tamagotchi, it will evolve into Tamagotchi. Oh. He wakes up at 10 AM, sleeps at 10 PM, and doesn't live very long, normally just 2 or 3 days. With average care of Gotchi Tamagotchi, it will evolve into Neurochi. Being the second worst character, it passes away in just a few days. Neurochi sleeps from 10 PM and wakes up at 9 AM. Finally, with perfect care, it will evolve into Gotchi Pachi. He will live a fairly long time, sleeps at 10 PM, and wakes up at 10 AM. All adults have a base weight of 30, by the way, meaning their weight cannot go below 30. Tamagotchi, being the teen that requires better care, has the opportunity for higher evolutions. Tamagotchi may evolve into any of the previous 3 characters if varying amounts of poor care is given, but the other 3 evolutions require better care. Mascucci requires average care, and it must not receive any more discipline than 50%. Mascucci wakes up at 11 AM and sleeps at 11 PM, which is a habit I'm ashamed to admit we share. It has an average lifespan of around 15 to 16 days. It's also capable of evolving into a secret character, which we'll talk about in a moment. Jinorochi is obtained from a Tamagotchi with above average care, with a discipline level of 75%. It lives a long time and is very well behaved. It sleeps from 10 PM and wakes up at 9 AM. Finally, if perfect care is given, and the discipline level is at 100%, Tamagotchi will evolve into Mamechi. It lives for an extraordinarily long time, upwards of 25 days, and sleeps from 10 PM and wakes up at 9 AM. And that was all the characters. Well, except one. On Japanese versions, it's possible to obtain Oyajichi, and on international versions, it's possible to obtain Bill. To obtain these characters requires very specific care. You must first raise a Mascucci from a Tamagotchi that started with 0 discipline. That means you're not disciplining it at all when raising it. From there, you must give good to perfect care, and around the age of 10, it will evolve. And with that, that is every single character on the device. And every feature on the device. It's worlds simpler than the previously covered V4, though its simplicity isn't wholly to its detriment. The device's simple care and smaller pool of characters is appealing in its own way. It was fun at its time of release, and it's still fun today. So fun, in fact, that it led to a second wave of functionally similar devices, dubbed the P2. Addendum. The P2. The P2 didn't change up too many features, but the most glaring change was the cast of characters. The growth chart and the requirements to get each Tamagotchi were the same. It's a simple case of replacing each character with another one. Here's a few profiles. As with the previous device, the secret character is obtained in the same way. but this time from Zukichi instead of Maskuchi. Interestingly, since the P1 had its character change in the international market, it had a potential of 2 different secret characters depending on the device. The P2 also had it change once in Japan and once internationally, meaning depending on the device, you could have one of 3 different secret characters. Pochichi was changed on the second wave of Japanese devices to Nyanachi, functionally being the same to obtain, but this time it was a cat instead of a dog. The best part about the P2 was the improved game, changing the entirely luck-based left or right to higher or lower. Your Tamagotchi will show you a number between 1 and 9, and you have to choose whether you think the next number is going to be higher or lower. It's good to actually have a game that is a game, whereas in the original device you had an equal chance of winning or losing without looking at the device and just mashing buttons, but now you actually do better if you try. There are also a few extremely minor changes, such as the weight being changed from ounces to pounds, the food options being shown as pictures, along with being changed to a hamburger, or onigiri on the Japanese device, and cake. Though you could argue the P2 is a direct improvement on the P1, it doesn't make the P1 obsolete. By preparing and learning for this video, I ran a P1 and had lots of fun. The changes are good, but it's just a new flavour in my opinion, not a revolution. Addendum 2. Death and other stuff. All good things must come to an end, and there's no better way to question your own mortality than the death of a digital egg baby. The way your Tamagotchi's death is represented varies from region to region. In the Japanese models, a ghost floats next to a gravestone. In the English P1, it shows an angel flying amongst the stars. And in the English P2, it shows a UFO in space, implying that it didn't actually die, it just got sick of you, packed its bags, and left. Pressing the right button will scroll the screen and show you the age of your Tamagotchi when it died, and pushing it again will bring you back to the previous screen. At this point, the clock can no longer be viewed. If the user maintained good care of their Tamagotchi during the adult stage, it'll show an animation of the Tamagotchi laying an egg just before it passes. These eggs don't change anything, it's just an animation, but I think it's a genuinely sweet feature to create a great sense of achievement. The whole fun of a Tamagotchi is watching it grow, with the knowledge that it won't live forever. The game is keeping it alive, stopping it from dying, simply put. But in this case, you might see death as losing. But it's not. It's inevitable. It would be no fun if it lived forever. The egg shows a last congratulations, you did it. It's the happy ending. But that's enough waxing poetic. Pressing the left and right button at the same time will immediately spawn a new egg, and you can go right back to caring for another Tamagotchi. There are also a few other things I want to talk about that don't really fall under care, but are useful to know. Pressing the A and C buttons simultaneously will disable or enable sound, indicated by a beep. This can only be done on the main screen, and won't work if the Tamagotchi is in the middle of an animation. But say you're busy for a day and can't care for your Tamagotchi, and you need things to slow down. The P1 and 2 do have a pause function. Sort of. To pause it, you must enter the clock set screen. While in that state, all growth, loss of hearts, and any other care requirements are paused. To enter this, you simply need to go to the clock menu and press the left and right buttons, just the same as muting the device. Somewhat annoyingly, the original release of these devices had no low battery screens, so the devices would still run even if the batteries were critically low. In replicas of these devices, they do, and you have a chance to replace them quickly before they run out, but otherwise it will be indicated by the LCD screen starting to fade away. Also, I learnt very late in the development of this video that apparently on the re-releases of this device, the threshold of what's considered too many snacks was lowered quite a lot, so you have to be careful not to give it too many snacks, more so than you do the older versions at least. And on that anticlimactic note, that is everything you need to know about the Tamagotchi P1 and P2. Thank you for sticking around till the end. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment and I'll respond as quickly as I can. This video has been in the works for a very long time. Like, since the last video was made. I've just been on and off working on it so much that it didn't end up getting finished until now. But hopefully the next upload should be a bit sooner than another year. I'd like to give a couple thank yous. First off, to the Gotchi Boy for helping out with the history of the device. I reached out to him not long after I released the first guide, and he was very enthusiastic. And then coming back to him nearly a year later, he was still perfectly happy to help. I truly cannot thank him enough for that. He also creates Tamagotchi content on YouTube, so if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend going over there and giving him some love. Also, I'd like to thank you, the viewers. Yes, I'm doing that. For the incredibly positive response for the first video. It now sits just above 3,000 views. I've loved reading all the comments. It's truly incredible to have such a nice community. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.